Hello, this is Lynn Fraser. I'm inviting you to join me for 4 weeks in a deepening course, Radical Recovery, Radical Freedom. We all use things, substances, and processes to modify our experience in the moment. Sometimes that progresses from a temporary relief, a distraction, or fun into an addiction. There's a big difference between having an ice cream on a sunny afternoon and binge eating a pint while we're alone in our room. Between watching a movie and enjoying it and compulsively binge watching Netflix to cover the emptiness in our own lives. We can't stop despite the negative consequences. It becomes an addiction. When we really need to get away in the present moment, we use more extreme measures. What started out as social drinking on a weekend might turn into a shot of whiskey in our coffee every morning. We up the level of intensity from pot to heroin. Some addictions create a gray, kind of an unfulfilled life. Other addictions kill people. They kill us, they kill people around us. More people are dying now of opioid overdoses than they died during the height of the AIDS crisis epidemic. Why do we need to escape? What are we escaping from? Trauma is at the root of it. We've all experienced events that were too overwhelming at the time for us to integrate and process. When that happens, they get stored in our bodies as energy that's connected or velcroed to the memory, words, and pictures. We feel we must avoid these sensations. Energy that is paired with angry words can feel dangerous to us, like we are being punished or we should be punished, like we've done something wrong. We become afraid to feel the energy in our own body, and most of us retreat up into our head, into thoughts. When that happens, they get stored in our bodies as energy that's connected or velcroed to the memory, words, and pictures. We'll look for a drug or a process or something that will settle us down, that will calm us down. If we're hypo, meaning too depressed, we're not really feeling anything, then we might look for a stimulant, something that makes us come alive. Trauma causes disconnection from ourselves and from the present moment. We develop core deficiency beliefs of I'm unworthy, for instance, based on our true lived experience at that time. They're not true, but we feel like they're true because of the energy and the words that are stored together. That becomes something that we need to escape from. We escape, mute, or numb them through addictions around substances like food, alcohol, and other drugs. We can also escape into process addictions, gambling, sex, overworking, shopping. Some of these are socially sanctioned and some of them are not. Watch this clip of Dr. Gabor Mate explaining the effect of trauma, the isolation, the disconnection that happens after we've experienced traumatic events.
Now we can talk about what is trauma, and people think of trauma as being these terrible things that happen to you, and those are traumatic, but they're not the trauma. The trauma is what happens inside of you as a result of those things, and what happens is the shutdown of the self. What happens is a disconnection from the body, a shame about the self. So what happens is a loss of connection to oneself and a worldview that makes it difficult for you to be in the present moment. So trauma ultimately is disconnection from the self and from the present moment. So that instead of you and I talking right now, as I hope we are, as two adults present to ourselves and how we feel then to one another, if we were playing on some traumatic scenario, we would both be driven, or one of us at least would be driven by some past hurt. And then I wouldn't be present at all. And then it would take a lot of consciousness. And if I was acting that way, it would take a lot of consciousness on your part to stay present and to say, well, Gabo, you seem to be very in a lot of pain right now. What's happening for you? How can we reconnect here? That would take a lot of consciousness on your part.
To not be triggered.
Not be triggered.
Yeah.
What happens in life is We trigger one another. We trigger our friends. They trigger us. We trigger our partners, spouses, so on. And then we're not realizing that we're not in the present. Trauma shows up in that disconnect from the self and that disconnect from the present. And that's what trauma is. And so for that, you don't need tsunamis, and you don't need world wars, and you don't need abuse. Although the more that happens, the more likely you're going to be traumatized. But you don't. You can just have parents who just couldn't see you because they couldn't see themselves because they've been traumatized.
When I interviewed Scott Kilby for the recent Radical Recovery Summit, he spoke about a lightness, a sense of being able to be more yourself. As we release trauma, we release shame. There's an openness that happens, a curiosity, and a willingness to really explore life. It's like we light right up. It's really exciting when we can resolve the underlying issues and move into more of a relaxed, open possibility for our own lives. That's radical recovery.
Educating people about what really addiction is all about. It's not about the drug or alcohol. There's underlying things there. And getting them interested and juiced up about the idea of real freedom. Like not just clean and sober another day, but what does real freedom feel like in the mind and body, spiritual, you know? And then that's where their readiness comes in. If you can light that fire where they're interested for their own sake. We got to do that for people.
Just before we go on, what is that real freedom? What can you give people a taste of that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in my experience, it's less shame. Mm-hmm. It's the things we've been talking about. It's when you start to experience the absence of shame, the absence of trauma, the absence of a deficiency story or stories. You start to, and you feel a lightness in your being. Like you could say you feel present, but it's more than just presence. You actually, on the bodily level, you feel lighter. And you feel more able to just be yourself, like whatever that is, you show up as yourself and being able to express your wants and needs and not feel bad about that. And learning how to love, but that doesn't mean like the sticky kind of love where, you know, but more of just a simple, open, in some ways not attached love is what it looks like for me. And then just remaining open because there's always more to see. In my life, there's more to see. And that's what it looks like for me.
Join me. It's 4 Sundays, 90 minutes each. It's at noon Eastern. It almost doesn't matter what it is that we're using to get away. The issue is that we need to get away in the first place. As we resolve that, then the compulsion becomes workable. This is possible. I hope you can join me. Email me, lynnfraserstillpoint@gmail.com, and we'll talk about how this might work for you. I hope to see you there. Thank you. This clip is from the interview that Dr. Kay Bout did with me, Lynn Fraser, focusing on healing trauma with the Living Inquiries. You know, there's the core deficiency stories, there's the resistance and how to work with resistance. Most people don't want to be present with this, but it's because we don't feel like we can. And so part of what I've done is I've taken my training as a meditation teacher and the experience that I've had with that over 20 years. And then this last 5 years of working individually with people and in groups. And I've kind of combined that into a really practical way to work with ourselves. And so the people that I work with have that confidence because I have the confidence. I know that there's nothing inherently wrong with any of us. I know that in every cell of my body. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. We have some habits. We have some habits of the mind that might be really difficult. We have some energy in our body that might not feel comfortable. But all of us can work with that. And all of us can release that and solve that. And then we end up with the space that we can actually think, well, what do I want to do with my life? What do I, you know, in some ways, I wish I'd learned that before I was in my mid-60s, but at least I know it now. So that's okay. So there's nothing that we have to avoid anymore. And that comes with direct experience. It really only comes with direct experience. So if we have the experiences of sitting in inquiry or with a facilitator, or however it is that we have the experiences, that we can have energy to come up that's difficult to be with, and we can look at it. One of the questions that we sometimes ask in the anxiety inquiry is that energy here to hurt me? And it might feel like it is, but when we actually look, every single time people will say things like, it's here to warn me, it's here to protect me. And so this thing that we've been avoiding all of this time through addictions is actually just our own system going, hey, we need some help here. So once people have that experience that the energy, no matter how intense it is, the energy in their body is not here to hurt them, then it opens up the space where we can actually have a look at it. So that, I think, to me, is the core of it. It doesn't matter how you get to that point where you have that confidence, but once you get it, then everything becomes workable.